Amen. It's good to be here again tonight, and I'm going to share my testimony. Pastor Alan asked me to do that, you know what? You have to be careful when you're sharing your testimony. Sometimes we think the powerful testimonies are the worst people. I was standing here as a very proud man today. My daughter got married last week, and her testimony was she's 28 years old, a virgin, never been kissed, and she stood up last Sunday and married Russell Seeley. I'm not quite sure about the name, but she married him with a great testimony. And her testimony, if you go online and see it, fantastic testimony. I'm a very proud father tonight, amen, because that's a testimony, amen. And then this morning, my oldest son, my oldest born, he was preaching in his church this morning, and you're thinking, look at it, God's goodness is running after me. And it really is true. God's, when you give your life to God, and really, he's not running after me. He's running after me because of my parents. My parents were missionaries in India, and they lived by faith, completely by faith for 17 years. They didn't have any church. I thank God for our fellowship that support. But they lived by faith, incredible story of God's provision. I'm their middle child. They have 5 children, and they live totally by faith. And God gets all the glory in every testimony. And this really sometimes can be a testimony for parents who are praying for their kids who are not saved. If you keep praying for your kids, they will get saved. And I'm testimony of that today. We have to be careful. I remember a good friend of mine, Pastor John McCarthy, in America now. He was serving in South Africa with us. And he was telling me how his son went to a testimony service. And the guy was testifying about heroin and the stuff he'd taken. And he's sitting there, a church kid, and he hears this testimony which was almost like glorifying sin. And it was so glorifying to sin that his son said, that sounds really good. And he went out and tried it and ended up becoming a heroin addict, living in a car underneath a bridge somewhere in Los Angeles. So I don't want to glorify the devil tonight. I want to give God all the glory. And I've changed my testimony a little bit. Not that my testimony's changed, but I don't want to give glory to the devil for any part of his. God gets all the glory. I'm here because of my parents, missionaries in India, as I said, at 4.5 years old. Actually, at 4 years old, my mum reminded me, I was sitting on my mum's lap, and she said to me, Dave, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to do whatever God wants me to do. That's 4 years old. I knew God at 4 years old. And then this event happened. My mum and dad sent me, because that's what missionaries did in those days. And they sent me to boarding school at 4.5 years old. I was separated from my mum. I went to this boarding school. It was a Christian boarding school, so-called Christian boarding school, and it messed me up, completely messed me up. I got abused in that boarding school. I felt rejection. I felt, I became incredibly aggressive. When you get messed with, it brings out an aggression within you, and I became incredibly aggressive at 10 years old. I was an aggressive monster who craved love. And that's what it did to me. And so at 10 years old, we left India. We came back to England. I remember hearing all these horror stories about English schools. I grew up in a Christian school, and I heard all these horror stories about how English schools used to be. And so I was not going to be messed around with. And so I walked into the school. This young kid was sitting there looking at me. My mum and dad had bought me shorts, because that's what we always wore. And all the kids had long trousers on, and I walked into school with shorts on. And this kid said to me, hey, hot pants. I don't think they're a thing anymore, but they call me hot pants. So that's it. And I walked over to him. I knocked him out. And you know what? I never had a problem in school again. I put my case. I thought, that works really well. So when I went to high school, I found that aggression worked for me. I went to high school. Went to a very good school. Had an awesome education. I went to Queen Elizabeth Boys' School in Barnet, which Tony Blair tried to get his son in. They wouldn't let him in there. A very good school. But I thought, well, that worked at my last school. So I walked into school, looked for the biggest guy, walked over to him and just punched him out on the floor, knocked him out cold. And that was it for that school. I was sorted in that school, didn't have anyone troubling me in that school. But this aggression was on me that had come from the abuse I'd received at boarding school. And as I said, I had an incredible education, but I wasn't really interested in the education. I just wanted to fight, get rich, wanted to travel, and wanted to have a beautiful girlfriend. My beautiful wife is here with me tonight, and so I got that part of it. But there was a lot of aggression, and I took a lot of that out in the rugby field. We used to play rugby at our school. The coach of our school was the England under-20 rugby coach. It was a very big rugby school, and I used to take a lot of the aggression out playing rugby and in the school playground. But you know what, that aggression, when I left school, that aggression was still there. And I remember my granddad telling me off one day, and so the only way I know how to handle that was I punched my granddad, and it's just this anger that I had in me, and I couldn't work out where this anger had come from. All this time I was in church, going to church, but I despised church. I despised the hypocrites in church. It wasn't a Potter's House church, and I'm not saying all churches are bad, but this church, after Sunday service, all the young people used to go down the pub, and they'd invite me. I said, "You must be joking. I'm not going down with you lot." It just was so weak, and it was so wishy-washy. And I think, you know what? I like the stories of Jesus, because I thought if I was around when Jesus was around, he was cool. But you lot, nothing like Jesus. And I despised them, and I wouldn't, as soon as I could, I stopped going to church. I told my mum and dad I'm not going to church. They used to send me to Christian holiday camps. I got banned from every single one of them, either for fighting or for drinking or for chasing the girls or whatever it was. But I'd come home and my mum would be crying. There'd be a letter on the mat saying, "Your son is banned from this camp, your son is banned from that camp." Even as an adult, I went to Oak Hall, if anyone knows that, skiing holidays, and I got banned from the skiing holidays in Oak Hall. And eventually I thought, this Christian thing is not for me. At school I lied about my parents. I was embarrassed that they were Christians. I was embarrassed about Christianity. I told everyone my parents were millionaires. And so I had to live up to that. I had to have the flashiest clothes at school. I introduced trainers into school, but to live up to that, I had to work hard, and I had to always have the goodies, and I had to have the latest stuff, and so I learned how to work hard as well, and did all sorts of. I did 2 paper rounds. I had a gardening job. I did all sorts of things to play it up. And I told everyone at 24 I'm going to get an inheritance. I lied about it. There's no inheritance coming my way. But the incredible thing was, at 24, the money that I said I was going to have, I had it. The power of words, even when you're unsaved, the power of words. And I lied about this, and at 24 that happened. I got into graphic reproduction and quickly moved up the ladder in that trade and worked for Robert Maxwell, BPCC, British Print and Communications Corporation, and was, earning more than all of my friends. I bought a house at 21 years old in Chiswick, a nice area of Chiswick, I was dating a girl, a very beautiful girl, for a couple of years, and that relationship just finished, and if I'll be honest, she dumped me. When you're in relationships, you sort of cut your friends off, and so I came out of this relationship and I had no friends. And that's when the devil stepped in and he brought into my life some really good bad friends. And they introduced me to marijuana. They introduced me to their lifestyle. It was a very hedonistic lifestyle. It was going to nightclubs. It was, I was hanging out with a lot of rich and famous people, dancing on the same nightclub floors as Mick Jagger and people like that, always bumping into these people. It was by invitation only nightclubs. And it was a very, up there lifestyle. I had money, the devil was really trying to pull me away from him. And, I wasn't into heavy drugs. I was into recreational drugs. But my lifestyle had become very, very, very promiscuous. And you know what that does to you? It just hollowed me out. I had no feelings anymore. I'm just living this life, and nothing could satisfy me. Nothing could, I just felt empty. I felt lonely, even though I had people around me all the time. And one day I was walking down the street, and I thought, we're all in a rat race. I'm walking down the street, and I'm thinking, I can go into that house, and I can tell you exactly what's in the house. There'll be a dining room, there'll be a lounge, there'll be a kitchen, there'll be a morning room, there'll be, bedrooms, and everyone lives in the same sort of place. And I can pretty much tell you where everything is in that house. And I'm thinking, everyone gets up around about the same time. We all waddle off to work the same way. We turn around, we work, we come back, and we waddle back the same way. And I thought, I am just caught in this rat race, and I don't want to be in this rat race. I don't want to be in this place. And so I made a decision. I went to my boss and I said, listen, I'd like you to give me 3 months holiday because I want to travel. And he said, no, there's no way we're going to give you 3 months, 3 months off to travel. And so I said, I'll tell you what then, keep your job. And I resigned from my job. I sold all that I had, and I retired. So I'm not going to be in that. I'm not in that rat race. I'm going. And so I persuaded my friend also to do the same thing. He dumped his girlfriend. He sold his house. She wasn't very happy with me. And we decided to start traveling. We went to America and sort of messed around and went to this guy called Baz. He lived in, San Diego. Beautiful house. This guy was oil rich, incredibly wealthy. We went to his house. He's got 3 floors overlooking the ocean. He's got cars. He's got motorbikes. He's got this 3-floor house, mansion overlooking the ocean. And as soon as we get to his house, he goes, guys, let's go to Los Angeles. And we jump in there, and he's got a beautiful wife, absolutely beautiful wife, and a beautiful little daughter. And it's like, let's go to Los Angeles, from San Diego. And so well, we've just come to San Diego, but okay, we all went up to Los Angeles, and we get there, and in the car, he starts pulling out bags of cocaine. And I'm sitting there scratching my head thinking, you have got everything. Everything a man could want. You've got a beautiful wife. You've got a beautiful young daughter. You live in this incredible place. You've got cars. You've got the idyllic lifestyle, and yet you're totally empty. And it really did confuse me. We went to the nightclubs in Los Angeles, and he says, yeah, you better have a couple of bags of this because the only way you'll get a girl is with cocaine. It's like, I don't want this. And I absolutely started to hate that whole lifestyle. And I'm thinking, what's life all about? Anyway, we left Los Angeles. We went to Hawaii, and we're there in Hawaii. We wangled our way into getting a top floor apartment on Waikiki Beach. We had our own lift going up there, and we were looking to hire out, what's that guy, Magnum. Anyone remember Magnum? Older people remember Magnum. We wanted to hire out his Ferrari, and we got there, and the guy, we're going to hire out this Ferrari, and this is me and my friend Ronnie, and looked in the engine. It's a Ford engine. It's like, you rip-off merchants. It's like, so we're vexed with them, so we hired a Jeep instead. And I've seen this lifestyle, Hawaii 5-0, and the big waves and everything else. And so we went down the beach, and I jumped in the ocean. And I didn't realize you're not meant to jump in the ocean. These waves are high as the ceiling here. And about half an hour later, I came out with my life. No shorts. My shorts had come off. I lost my shorts. It was like being so I had Speedos underneath. It's all right. So we, anyway, so I could have lost my life right there. And so anyway, we do that, and I went back to the hotel with just my Speedos on, absolutely red raw, and I walked through the hotel lobby, and everyone's laughing at me. So I started laughing at them back, and it's like. And I'm thinking, what is this life all about? And my friend Ronnie, he's gone off to score some drugs, and it's like he comes back and he got ripped off. And so we went down to sort these guys out, and here we are in the back streets of Hawaii, looking at these guys, and they pull guns out. It's like, oh my goodness, what are we into? And it's like this hedonistic lifestyle is we're starting to see the underbelly of it. And I'm thinking, what is life about? Anyway, we moved from there. We went to New Zealand, and everywhere Ronnie went, he fell in love. We're on the beach in New Zealand, and we saw this girl who's drowning. So, Ronnie ran in, and he saved her life, and so we get invited back to the family house, and, he wants to he fell in love with this girl, and he wants to stay in New Zealand. I said, Ronnie, I'm not staying in New Zealand. And so anyway, he decided to leave New Zealand. We went to Australia, and he fell in love in Australia. I bought a car. I bought a little convertible Beetle. And the guy we bought the car from was a hairdresser. Don't look at my car like that. But anyway, he was a hairdresser, and his assistant, he said, listen, meet me at work, and you drive me home, you can take the car. So we went with the assistant back to the house. Ronnie disappeared into one of the bedrooms with the assistant. It was a girl, it's all right. And went into and I didn't see him for about a week. He'd fallen in love, and he's actually married to that girl now. Her name is Janine, and he married Janine. He says, well, Dave, you're on your own now. And so here I am in a foreign country all by myself, and it's amazing what loneliness does to you. And I'm smoking more and more weed, and an idle mind is the devil's playground. And I met some other guys, and we started to travel. We started to travel up the East Coast, and we were just menace. We just troublemakers. We used to go up to people. Most people in Australia wear shorts, and so we go up and pull their legs, hair legs, and hairy leg pull, and we slap them, and we try and get into fights everywhere. Pubs, just go in there and annoy people, and see if I get out with my life, get out without getting beaten the snot out of me. And we're just fighting. We're troublemakers. We're just living our life with no aim, just idle in mind. And traveling up the east coast of Australia. And what we're looking for is the next score, getting the next, where can we get our next marijuana from? And we're traveling further and further up Australia. And one night we had no gear, as we call it. And so we drove all the way to Cairns, a place called Cairns. And I walked into a pub. By now I could spot a drug dealer from a mile off. I walked into this pub in Cairns and said, hey, listen, can I buy some gear off you? He says, yeah. This huge islander guy. He says, yeah, come back to my house. Come back to the house, And he hooked us up, and we're sitting in his house, and he invited us in, and he cooked us dinner. And then we started playing cards, and we're playing card games, and we're getting stoned, and this stuff must have been laced with something else, because I thought I was a camel, and I had the hump, and I'm throwing up, and but it's just absolute debauchery. And then after a couple of days of being there, we said to him, Mick, there's three of us traveling together by now, John, Charlie, and myself, and I said, Mick, we're going to go off now. We're going to go traveling. He goes, no, you're not. He goes, you're my friends. And it's like, no, Mick, I don't think you understand. We're leaving. He goes, you're not going anywhere. You're my friends. And it's like, he's big. And so we tried to go, and he wouldn't let us. He wouldn't let us out of the house. And so we're sitting there, and every day we're sort of thinking of ways to escape. And then he starts telling us stories. He's wanted by the police for murder. He murdered a policeman in Sydney, and his stories have got dark, and his whole countenance changed. It's very, very, very dark, and we realize we're in some trouble now. And we just make plans. We say, all right, in the middle of the night, we're going to get up and escape. And we get up in the middle of the night, and he's standing over us with a knife. So I thought, wow, I had a baseball bat. And I thought, let's just get him, smack him around the head with a baseball bat. But I don't want to be done for murder. If I hit him too hard, I might murder the guy. And it's like, explain that to the police. Here we are smoking dope. And it's like, no, we can't hit him with a baseball bat. And so we're trying to come up with plans. And one day he loses it. And he starts fighting with his girlfriend. And one thing I can't handle is women getting beaten. And so I jump on his back and I pull him off. And he goes, okay, you want it, do you? Let's go for it. And he throws me a knife. And he wants to fight with me. And it's like, I became very good at talking right then. And I talked to him about having this knife fight with me. But then he turns to her and he says, you know why you upset me. And if you can't tell me why you upset me after you've made me a meal, I'm going to kill you. And we've been here for about 10 days. We've been in this place for about 10 days. We couldn't escape. And this guy, now he's going to kill his girlfriend. It's like, I can't sit by and watch that happen. And it's like, wow, it's like, and he goes, go and make a meal and come back and tell me why you upset me. And if you can't tell me, you're dead. And all of us had no doubt that's what he's going to do. He was just driven by a demon. And so I said to him, can I go and make a cup of tea? He walks. He said, yep, go and make a cup of tea. I went into the kitchen. As I walked into the kitchen, this girl turns to me and says, you know how to pray, and you better pray right now to get us out of this. I said, God, remember me from a long time ago when I was 4? Give me the words to tell her. What should I tell her? And so I came up with the words to tell her. She went back into the room, gave him his dinner, and said, Mick, the reason I upset you, she hadn't upset him, but she's the reason. She told him what I said to tell her, and his smile came back on his face, and he's like, yep. I said, Mick, this is mad. This has got to stop. I said, John, Charlie, and I are leaving. In the morning, we're leaving. You understand? We're going. He goes, no problem. I've got a picture of this guy. I don't know where it is actually, but I've got a picture of this guy waving us goodbye, this big giant just waving us goodbye. And my friend said to me, wow, you handled that really well. Yeah, I did, didn't I? But in the back of my mind, I knew it was the prayer. And really, it wasn't just my prayer, it was my mother and my father's prayer. Because this guy let us go. And so we went traveling up to the Atherton Tablelands, a beautiful part of Queensland. We went traveling around the Atherton Tablelands. And then foolishly, we came back to Cairns. We were going to stay one night in the backpackers inn there, and then we're going to go on to wherever we're going. In fact, Charlie had had enough. He was going back to England now. He'd had enough traveling with us. It was too much trouble. And we walked into the backpackers, and there's this guy, Mick, standing. Hey, my friends are back. And some other two friends just disappeared, and just me and Mick. And it's like, Mick, let's go out drinking. I thought, I'm going to drink this guy under the table. And so I went out to this pub down in Cairns and just started drinking. And he's taking one, and I'm taking two, and he's taking one, and I'm giving him three. And it's like, and I'm just trying to get him blotto. So I'm going to run back to the backpackers, and we're going to get in that car, and I'm not going to drive. They're going to drive. In fact, I did lose my driving license, but we're going to drive out of here. And this girl comes up to him and starts chatting to Mick and totally distracted him. So here's my chance to escape. And I ran out of the place and got in the car, and we literally drove out of Cairns, never went back there, and dropped Charlie off at Townsville. And then we started driving across. I'd read a book when I was younger called On the Beach, and it was all about the Holocaust and about the end of the world. And it was based in Darwin, and something in me always wanted to go. I had to get to Darwin. There's something about Darwin. I had to get to Darwin, and so we drove across Australia, and we're driving across in the desert, and just long drives with me and John. John's mum and dad used to be missionaries in Vanuatu, and so we had lots of interesting conversations about the prayer I prayed and stuff like that. And we're driving across in the desert, and one day we're coming into this little town. And we go past this guy in a van. It says, beware, the kingdom of heaven is nigh. Repent, because Jesus is coming back. Middle of nowhere. And so we went, and we're sleeping in the car, and we're looking for a place to park the car, which would be safe. And we see this guy's van outside a church. We thought, you know what, church people there, yeah, they're a soft touch. We'll get somewhere to sleep for the night, and might even get a cup of tea and some food. And so we pulled up outside the church and knocked on the door. They opened the doors. Hey, we're just starting our meetings. Come in. And they put us right at the front. And me and Mike, we couldn't help it. We were a little bit high, and they started their song service, and we started laughing at their song service. We're at the front. We're giggling our heads off. We're mocking them. We don't care. We're just mocking them. But this guy started preaching. And it's probably the best sermon I've ever heard on end times prophecy. And he had all the facts. There's the Bible verse. There's the picture from the newspapers. Here's the Bible verse. Here's the pictures. I've never heard a sermon like it. It was incredible. He said, you know what, Jesus would come back. If Jesus came back, would you be ready? And I thought, you know, if Jesus comes back, I'm in a lot of trouble. I'm not ready. Anyway, so we thought, well, they offered us a bed for the night, and we're walking back to their house. It's just around the corner from this couple in the church, and he's walking back, and he's smoking his cigarette, and he's tapping it out on his hat. Real Aussie, like outback people, and he's tapping the cigarettes in his hat, and it's okay, that's interesting. So Christians, yeah, he's smoking, and we get to the house, and he gives us a couple of beers, and so we're drinking their beers, and go, so how long have you guys been married? Oh no, we're not married, we just love each other. I thought, I don't know about this. This doesn't add up. It's not what I know. Anyway, they let us stay over the night, and they said, we're going to church in the morning. It was a Sunday morning, and so just help yourself to anything you want in the house. And they left the house open, and they said, if you'd like to come to church, come to church. And so, we went to church that morning because we felt obliged to, but it wasn't there. It wasn't there, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I went back to thinking about when this guy Mick had pulled a knife and wanted to kill me and wanted to have a fight. And I thought, what if I died? That's probably the closest I've ever come to dying. What if I died? Where would I go? And my mum and dad had given me a little Bible. And I started looking at this Bible. And I thought, God, I don't know about fire. I've never been burnt. I don't know what that would be like to burn for eternity, because that's what they're talking about, this burning for eternity. I don't know. It doesn't scare me somehow. I don't know why, but it doesn't scare me. What is hell like? And I flicked open this Bible my mum and dad gave me, and it says, you'll become like the gods you serve. You have eyes, but you can't see. My auntie was blind. And while I was traveling, I heard the news that she was also going deaf. And I thought, imagine that, poor auntie, she's blind. And somehow she manages to ride, she's an Aquarian, she rides horses, and somehow she manages to ride her horses. But not only is she blind, but now she's going deaf. I thought, you have eyes, but you can't see. You have ears, but you can't hear. You have a mouth, but you can't speak. I'm thinking, this is what I heard about, like David Bowie, the man who fell to earth, and he's up there in a cocoon floating around the earth, and it's like, wow. It's like, this is horrific. This is loneliness. You can't hear, you can't see, you can't speak. You have feet, but you can't walk. You have hands, but you can't feel. You're in this cocoon forever and forever and forever. And I asked God, what is hell like? And God gave me that picture. And I said, God, I never want to go to that place. I never want to go to hell. But if I died at that moment, that's where I was destined to go, and that troubled me. So I quickly changed my thinking. I said, God, what's heaven like then? And I opened up the Bible again. You can't always play Bible roulette, but I opened up the Bible my mum and dad gave me, and it says, no eye has seen, and no ear has heard, and no mind can conceive the things that God has for those that love him. I thought, I've traveled the world. I've seen the amazing sight. I've seen the Taj Mahal. I've seen the Grand Canyon. I've seen all these different places, but no eye has seen anything like what God has prepared for us. No ear has heard. When you travel, a lot of people, have you been to PPI? And it's incredible there. Have you been to this place? Oh, you need to travel this. And that's what travelers talk about, where they've traveled to. And so people have told me, and I thought, right, I'm going to that place. That's next on my list. But no ear has heard how great heaven is better than anywhere you've ever heard about. And it says no mind can conceive the things that God has for those that love him. And so I think, Spielberg, if he made a movie about heaven with all the trickery of Hollywood and all of the stuff that they have, and he made a film about heaven, whatever he came up with, the best scenario you could ever think about, heaven's better than that. And I thought, which one would I choose? It's not even a question. I want to go to heaven. I don't want to spend 1 second in hell, and I want to go to heaven. And so as I'm driving, I'm thinking, and I'm a lot of time to think, and I'd sit there, lie on the beaches and drive and look out at the incredible. I remember driving through the desert in Australia, and I can see the horizon for 360 degrees and the incredible color of the earth and the stars setting and the colors in the sky. It's unbelievable. And I came to the conclusion, this didn't explode and happen. This was created. And I remember saying, God, you created all this, didn't you? He said, yeah, I did. And I started having this conversation with God and said, God, I don't want to go to hell. I want to go to heaven. And so we were getting close to Darwin. Pulled into Darwin. And there's this beach. The guy I was traveling with, we were both dope smokers. We were writing a book, just this drug-filled, terrible book we were writing. And it was just all about, what we'd do is we'd walk into a crowd the wrong way, and we'd take the conversations that people were having, and then we'd write those conversations into the book. And so we're at this really far out type of market. It's called Mindle Beach Market, where the sun sets beautifully over the city of Darwin. And we're walking at all these weirdos. I was into crystal power and all that stuff at the time, and into yin and yang, and into, we actually healed my mate had this little bird in a bird cage, and we healed this little bird. It came out and flew away, and then some raven came and ate it up. And but there's all this stuff going on, and I'm teaching people how to rebirth and stuff like that. I mean, the devil was trying to get hold of me, and all these different Harrys are trying to give us food and telling us about their doctrines and stuff like that. And the devil really knows where I'm going. And we're in Mindle Beach Market, just having this madness, and this little bloke, bald-headed bloke, Gary Pelham, walks up to me. He's got a limp. He goes, pokes me in the chest. In those days, you don't poke me in the chest. And he goes, and I'm about to knock him out, and he goes, Jesus loves you. And he starts to witness to me. And he invites me to this church called the Potter's House. And he tells me they've got a concert on Saturday night. I'm like, wow. Sounds good. I said, you got any good-looking girls in the church? He goes, don't you worry about that. I said, no, I am worried about that. And anyway, the Friday night comes, and I'm out in town. We're going to go out and go drinking and night clubbing. And this other guy comes up to me. And he comes up to me and he says, Jesus loves you. I said, have you got a little mate with a bald head? He goes, yeah. He said, yeah, he told me that yesterday. And he starts to witness to me and invites me out to the same concert. And so I went out that night. We went out drinking, got absolutely blinding drunk. I woke up the next morning beside my car. I didn't actually manage to get in my car. I woke up with a cockroach eating the saliva out the side of my mouth. That's how messed up I was. I was lying there on the street, just out of it. And but I knew I had to go to the concert that night. And we went to this concert, and there's lots of young people in the concert, and they're singing the songs, and it was pretty good. Liked it. Some quite pretty girls there as well. I'm looking at this whole thing. I like this. So I asked them, can I sleep in your car park tonight? Can we park the car in the car park and we sleep in your car park? We'll come to church tomorrow. And I said, yeah, you do that. And so we woke up a little bit late. The church service had already started. We heard all the singing through the windows. We're both in the car like this, just sleep in the car. And we ran into the church, and they put us right at the front. I had a pair of shorts on and a singlet, and that's it, no shoes, just shorts and shirts. And they put me right at the front of the church. And it's like, and I'm looking around, and then the altar call comes. And the guy goes, there's a couple of homos in here today. So, after what happened to me at boarding school, I didn't like that kind of people. So I'm looking for them. And I can't see anyone that fits that description in there. I'm thinking, hang on a second. Me and my mate were sleeping in the car last night. It's like, is he talking about me? And so I get upset. He's outing me. He's trying to out me in front of all these people. I was like, how can he say that? And that's all I could think about. And so after the service, I went up to him straight away. And I said, so point them out to me then. He said, point who out? I said, the gay guys, point them out to me. And he goes, well, I said, no, you said, there's a couple of guys, are you talking about me? No. And so I'm getting more and more aggressive at the front of the church. The ushers come and they usher me out of church. And then some people come along and they calm me down. And it's like, it spoiled the whole experience for me. But they encouraged me to come back that night. And I knew that's a place that God wanted me to be. So I had this big beard. I shaved my big beard off. And I put my best pair of jogging pants on and a shirt on. And I took my big bag of dope. And I threw it away. And I came to the church that night, and all I wanted to do was pray that prayer. I couldn't get saved in England. God had to take me all the way from my friends, my lifestyle. He took me all the way to Australia to get me saved. I went around the church and said, can I borrow $2? This was before mobile phones. We didn't have those things in those times. I went around the church begging $2. Can I have $2? Can I have $2? Can I have $2? Because the only thing that fed the phones there was $2. And I phoned my mum up. My mum was a concert pianist. Played with Mrs. Gandhi in India. She hadn't played a piano for years. Even to this day, she says that's the best day of her life. sorry to be emotional, but my dad said she played it for 10 days straight. I wanted to stay in Australia. It was a fantastic church, but God had other plans for me. I didn't like those plans. I didn't want to come back to England. In fact, I promised I'd never come back to this country. I hated this country. And, the Australian government, I applied for residency in Australia, and I think it was a record turn down. In 2 weeks, they turned me down from staying. I'd been in some trouble in Australia. I remember driving into one town, and I pulled up into the town, pulled up in my car. I was walking down the high street with my mate, and the police came up to me and said, "You're David Kennedy. You drive a green Beetle. This is the number plate of your car. You've come from here. We're on to you. If you cause any trouble in this town, we're on to you immediately. We know who you are, and we know what you do." And so within 2 weeks, I was ejected. I went to the airport. It was a Sunday morning. I went to the airport. Lots of people from church came. They shouldn't have done, but they did, to say goodbye to me. And there was 5 immigration officers there to make sure I got back on that plane. And I couldn't understand that. It's like, God, what are you doing? And my friend Peter Fields had heard about this little church in Walthamstow with the pastor Peter Bayham. And he introduced me. I came back to England. I flew in on a Saturday night, and my mum and dad met me at the airport. And I said, "Oh, Dad, you've got to take me to Walthamstow tomorrow." I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, you've got to take me to Walthamstow tomorrow. And I went to this little church. There was a little white guy in the church and a whole bunch of black people in the church. And it's like, what the heck is God doing? What is he? I had a beautiful church that loved me. The people in that church loved me, and the people in Walthamstow, they didn't seem to be receptive towards me. I had physical, fist fights with the people in the church in Walthamstow. I go, God, what are you doing? Bringing me here? I met a girl in Australia, and I started dating her. And I remember saying to God, if this isn't the one for me, I want you to make her break up with me. I walked into church, went to sit next to her, and she goes, "Sorry, it's over." I prayed that prayer the night before. I said, God, there's some prayers you answer too quickly. Just give me one more day dating her. It's like, no, it was over. And she said, that's it. It's just like, and it was like, she rejected me, and it was like, this is, I remember they asked me to close in prayer that morning. I said, no. Dave, can you close? No. No. I refused to close in prayer, and I was vexed, and I said, God, if this is you, then I want you to take away the pain from this. The next day I'm driving to work, and I'm thinking, there's no pain. And God helped me overcome that really quickly. But anyway, she contacted me and said, you know what, I made a mistake, and she came over to visit me in England, and my best mate nicked her from underneath my nose in the church. And so I'm vexed. I'm like, oh God, this Christian life is weird, isn't it? And I was so upset. I'm not staying in this church. And so I bought a plane ticket to India. I'm going back to my old life. I'm going back to the traveling life. I don't need all this nonsense. And so I remember being in church on the Wednesday, and they said, I'll see you Sunday. I'll see you Sunday as well, knowing that I had the plane ticket to India in my pocket. And I'll see you Sunday. Next morning I was on the plane. I was in India. I'm running. And all the time I was running, I was thinking, you know what? That story of Jonah. I wonder what God's going to do with a plane. Look what he did with a boat. And I landed, I touched down in Delhi, and I'm like, and there I am. And it's like I started traveling around India. I knew the place, I'm traveling. And I meet this guy when I'm traveling. He goes, listen, I'm onto some really big deals here. There's some gems that we can buy here. Then we travel to Thailand and we sell them in Thailand. Are you in? Are you in? And it's like, it's a genuine, I can make a lot of money. And just, and it was the devil was set me up. Come back to this lifestyle. Come back, I've been making a fortune with this, and, I just really like you, and let's do this deal together. And I'm sitting there, and God says to me, is that what you want? Is it riches that you want? And I said, God, that's not what I want. And so I turned down that deal, went down to Goa. I'm in Goa, and I'm hanging out with all my old touristy mates again. I'm not the same ones, but you get on with people really quickly. And I'm meeting these people, and they said, "Oh, listen, we're going to hire a bus. Do you want to be in on it? We're going to go out to this beach." And it's like, yeah. I'll give them the money. I didn't see him for 3 days. I thought, okay, I got ripped off again. Anyway, I see this guy. He goes, "Oh, listen, I'm really sorry." He goes, "I've spent the money on a whole bunch of gear. So here's your share." And he hands me, and I can smell it. It's like, it's good stuff. And I'm walking around with this stuff in my pocket for days. But do I want to get back into that? And I remember God saying to me, "Is that what you want? You want to get back into being a dope smoker again? Is that what you want?" I thought, no, I don't want that. So I took it and threw it in the ocean. Anyway, I moved from Goa. I was moving, so I can't remember where I went next. I think I went up to Tamil Nadu or something like that. And I get on this plane, and as we're waiting for the plane, there's this girl, and she's crying. And so, she's an English girl, she's crying. And so I went over and said, "What's the matter?" And she starts telling me how she's been beaten up, and it's not a great place for women to travel alone. And so I started, to talking to her, and it's like, as I'm talking to her, she's really pretty. This girl's really pretty. And then we find out we've got some common friends back in England, and we start, we just got on really well. And so we get to outside, we're going to Delhi, and going back to Delhi, and we get chatting, and she says, "Oh, listen, I've got a hotel booked for the night. Why don't you come and stay at my hotel?" I thought, Go back to the hotel, and went into the room. I remember God saying to me, "Is that what you want? More and more relationships?" I said, "God, that's not what I want." So what do you want? I said, "God, I want to serve you." He goes, "Well, what are you doing in this country then? Get back to Walthamstow. Get back to where you've come from." And so 1 month later, I walked back into Walthamstow. So I told you I'd be back on Sunday. It just happened to be 1 month later. And so, his goodness, as much as you try and run away from him, when you've surrendered your heart and your life to God, and I look at all the goodness of just, I've messed up many times in life. I look at the wonderful wife God has given me. I look at the wonderful family that God's given me. I look at the ministry that God's allowed us to be a part of. The blessing of being in this fellowship. The £500,000 that this fellowship has spent on me and my family being in South Africa. The churches that are planted. The work that's going on there. The church in Harrow that's just blossoming. The church in Archway that's still going. We took over the South End church, and it's at least doubled in size in less than a year. It's like God is so good. And even when you mess up, his goodness is running after you again and again and again. Let's bow our heads if we can in respect to God and the people around us. And if you want to